Hello and welcome to Mitch Madness. This is episode 13 of the Barndominium series. In this episode, we'll be looking at all of the underground and under slab utilities that I installed, including drain, waste, vent plumbing, supply plumbing, floor drains, communications, and some electrical. This would be a good one to watch for anyone building a structure on a slab, since you might get some ideas or reminders about stuff that needs to be done. Remember, once your floor is poured, there's pretty much no do-overs allowed on most of this. It's important in this episode to remind you that I'm just a guy. I'm not a plumber, an electrician, IT guy, or equipment operator. Nearly everything that you see being done here is all stuff that I learned from watching YouTube videos, much like you are doing now. Some of you probably won't like the way I did some stuff, however, constructive criticism is always welcome in the comments section. I'll start with the drain, waste, vent, or DWV plumbing. This was a lot of work and a lot of expected trips to the store for more or different materials. It took over 2 months to complete it. Remember, I work alone also. At some point before starting this work, I laid out the configuration of the house with marking paint so I'd know where all the walls will be. After carefully measuring out where all of the walls and fixtures will be located, I then painted lines on the floor indicating the run of all the plumbing. Then the digging began with the tractor. I had already bought many of the fittings that I thought I would need, so I laid out the plumbing using the fittings and scrap lengths of pipe and two-by-fours as a mock-up for the pipe layout. The most challenging thing by far with this job was getting the slope, or rise as it's called, of all of the pipes correct. I was careful not to have not enough rise, but in some cases I might have a little more than the required 1/4 inch or 1/8 per foot. I ain't lying, this job got real tiring real quick. Day after day of measuring, cutting, and gluing pipes and fittings, typically at least one or more trips to the store for more materials almost daily, as I expected, laying in the dirty trenches and pumping them out after they would get flooded from rain. Okay, we're going to take a break from the voiceover and I'll give you a video walkthrough of what I did. This will be in 2 parts, so there is some duplication of information. I'll show just the DWV plumbing first, since when you add in the supply lines, it all gets kind of cluttered. Then we'll take a look at the completed project ready for backfill. I will try to add chapter markers for all of this. I will start at the end of the line. And remember, this is important, like I mentioned in the description. I'm not a plumber. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a guy who looks at YouTube and learns how to do stuff. So I'm not telling you this is how you should do any of this. I'm telling you this is how I did it. And I passed inspection on the first visit here in Sumner County, Tennessee, which I was pretty psyched about. So we'll come back. This is the bathroom now. This is the toilet and the toilet vent. And you can see the fittings I used on all that. Everything's capped off now. The vent's going to come up through a wall here and up and up. That's a 10-foot stack that you need for pressure testing the system. Okay, so then moving down this way, this connection goes out to the tub and shower, and you can see I've got the P-trap, just sitting there. I'm going to install a box or something so that I can move that around as needed to install it. All right, and then we come out around this way, another junction there, and that is the bathroom sink, which apparently, since the inspector didn't mention it, is going to qualify as, that vent will work for that. But if not, the venting's all above ground. That's the thing is in some cases, some things may need to be vented above ground. I don't really know, but that doesn't matter because it's above ground. Moving on down with the 4-inch, we get to the next intersection, and that goes over to the kitchen sink. I used long sweep 90s, I think, in every case, because why not? I've got plenty of room for it. All right, and then continue in this way. Now we're going to take a left and go towards the front of the house. This is all 4-inch, real hard to work with. So we come down to 4-inch, and we get to this intersection here, where it goes out to the front of the house, outside the house there, and then it Y's off to the utility room. We'll head that way. All right, so at the end of the far end of the utility room, I put a second 10-foot test stack in. I just wanted to be absolutely sure that I didn't have any leaks. I guess that'll add another 5 pounds of pressure to the system. I'm not exactly sure, but probably so. Anyhow, the end of the line here, we're inside the utility room now. The end of the line is going to be a floor drain, emergency floor drain for the utility room. That's going to require what they call a trap primer to keep that trap full of water all the time. But I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. And then we go back to this. So that's 2-inch that goes up to the 4-inch. And then this 4-inch goes down to 3-inch. So now we got 3-inch. This is for the washer. And that pipe for the washer is designed to go inside the wall. That's a big pipe, so it has to be a 2x6 wall. All right, and then coming down to 4-inch, we go out this way. This is the sink for the utility room. It'll probably be a slop sink. Okay, and then we come back this way. All right, to this whole deal. That is toilet and toilet vent. I messed up the angle of the vent. That's why I've got so many, all those 22.5s in there and stuff. But he didn't seem to care about it, and I don't. It's just a vent. So then we're going to come down from that and go up to shower stall. That is a 2-inch. Everything's 2-inch or more. I'd use no 1.5. So that's the shower stall. And similarly, that's going to use the vent for the that same toilet vent as a wet vent. Okay, and then from there we come out back to 4-inch, 4-inch, 4-inch. Now we're outside the utility room. This blue line here is that's the front wall for the utility room. So this is for there's a P-trap in there also. That's going to be like a floor sink, a mop sink, a low level mounted sink for the shop. That'll probably be really handy. All this just goes out to the 4-inch, goes out back towards the front of the house. Little 45 degree there, and out to the front of the house.
At some point during the DWV installation, I decided I needed a break from it, so I switched gears and moved on to installing the new water main for the house and the stuff for the RV park. Digging the trench for this water main was accomplished by renting a trencher from Lowe's. This is a machine that does a lot of hard work, but is also a lot of hard work to operate. In total, I dug about 500 feet of trench in a 24-hour rental. The 300-foot 1-inch PEX water main made it from the meter right to the utility room without needing any connections or splices. The next trenching project was installing the infrastructure for the RV park. This was about a 200-foot run from the top of the hill to the utility room. After digging the trench, I ran a single 3/4-inch PEX water line for this. This trench also received an 1.25-inch electrical conduit for supplying the wiring to the site. I preloaded this conduit with rope cord so that it could be used as a fish tape for running the wiring. Inside the building, this conduit terminates against the outside wall. Finally, I ran a Cat 6 Ethernet cable rated for direct burial from the utility room to the site. This will be used for a Wi-Fi extender or access point. With the DWV inspection complete,
The RV park stuff finished and the water main installed, it was now time to move on to all of the supply plumbing. I'm running 3/4 inch line to supply the tub and shower in the master bathroom. I was initially planning on running only that from the utility room to the house, then branching everything else off of it. However, I changed my mind and decided to supply each fixture individually, which was probably a wise move. I covered all of the hot water tubes with insulation. Same deal with the utility room, an individual run for each fixture. All of this will be connected to a ManaBlock distribution block, which will be a pretty cool installation.
All right, going to give you guys a full overview of the plumbing. Plumbing's basically complete, and we'll start at the house. Okay, here we got this is the toilet. I use a 3-inch for the toilet. Next to that is the toilet vent. I got a 45-degree angle there. This is the water line for the toilet, which is going to go up inside the wall. All right, moving down. I got that. I think call that a combination, that sweep deal. Right, because you cannot use a what they call a sanitary tee, like a regular tee. Apparently, is not going to fly with code. So you have to use something like this, or a 45 like that, or something. So from here we go out. You're going to see those water lines. You'll see all of the hot water. The red lines are insulated with pipe insulation. That red one is actually a cold line. So anyhow, we come out here to this is going to be the tub and shower. So I just yesterday installed that tub box, and the last thing I need to do on that is I want to put some concrete to hold that rebar down so it doesn't get knocked out of place, because it's not very sturdy. All right, and then we come up from there. This is a possible future pantry sink. Okay, and that is designed, that one is positioned so not within the wall but on the side of the wall. And I kind of messed up the level on that one, so that rope is just to hold it more level. These two lines are the shower. I use 3/4 for the shower. That's hot and cold, and after the concrete set, they're going to get installed up inside that wall. But I don't want to do that until that concrete is set. Okay, so now we come back around here. This will be the lavatory, the master bathroom sink. That one's going to set just inside the wall. Okay, and then we come down this way. All right, we go up here to the kitchen sink. This one here, that drain, 2-inch, is designed to be inside the wall, so it'll be under the cabinet, and the supply lines will come out of the wall for the sink.
The last thing I'll talk about today is testing. I put this whole system through very rigorous testing. I installed 2 10-foot test stacks, filled the system with water until it overflowed from the first drain pipe. Then I checked all of the upright pipes to make sure they all had enough water level to cover all of the connections. I ended up doing this several times, since throughout the course of the project there were some plans changes that required reworking of some of the drain pipes. Each test involved leaving the system full overnight, then doing a thorough inspection with the flashlight the next day. I wanted to be 100% sure that my slope or rise were all within spec and that there were no leaks. I also decided to test all of the supply lines, even though none of these have any splices or connections. The woman at my Lowe's set me up with a perfect system of shark bite fittings, which I've never used before, to perform this task, as you will see in the video.
This here is a shark bite cap. I've never used shark bite before, but you just simply, in this case it's 3/4, just boop, you pop it on there, push it down good and snug, and then that end is capped off. And then on the pressure side, this is a device. You'll see it in the plumbing tools section of the store. It's an air pressure tester. And that is connected to an NPT fitting or something
And then this here is a 3/4 inch shark bite deal. So just like on the cap end, that's just going to get pushed in snug. And then we pressurize this with air. Of course, you need a compressor. I'm waiting an hour. If it holds pressure, we know we're good to go with these. So to remove these, you need this little horseshoe tool. You put it on there, and then you got to pull up on, I can't do this with one hand, you pull up on like this type of a motion, pull up on the horseshoe, and while you're kind of twisting this off. I won't be able to show the finished shop floor drain in this video. Hopefully it'll be in the next one. However, I'll show my plan for it here. I bought this square box type drain instead of a trough drain. It would have been a lot easier to plumb this into the DWV system. However, my plumbing inspector does not allow this, so it has to be plumbed separately to the outside. I wanted to install a valve for this drain to prevent insects from coming in and the possibility of outside water from entering the garage through it. Then I had the idea to install the valve right inside the drain box itself, and I think this will work good. I used a 3-inch to 2-inch bushing. I cemented this into the flange and sealed it good with silicone. The 2-inch drain pipe will extend through this bushing and into the drain box. This required removing the stopper type of deal from this bushing by sanding it away with the Dremel tool drum sander. Then the pipe will be cemented into the valve inside of the box. What you're seeing here is a mock-up of the plan. I know this is getting long, but I wanted to give you folks a bit of a checklist of stuff to think about. This is not an all-inclusive list, rather it's just stuff I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Be sure you have the correct rise on all of your drain pipes, 1/4 of an inch per foot on everything that is not 3 or 4 inch, which can be 1/8 of an inch per foot, as is my understanding. Think about installing tub boxes for your showers, tubs, or floor sinks so that you will have some positioning room for the drains when you get to installing the fixtures. Be sure to have adequate venting for whatever venting you need to do under the slab. Pipes protruding through the concrete to the surface should be sleeved to prevent direct contact with the concrete. For the toilets, use a sleeve thick enough to allow you to install the water closet over the drain pipe. Install a 10-foot test stack somewhere in your drain configuration for the inspector. Lastly, here are some specific items that you may or may not want to plan for that involve underground or under slab installation. Floor drains for garage, bathrooms, utility room, and kitchen, and confirm the correct installation procedure per your local code. Install trap primers for your emergency floor drains if required. Insulate your hot water pipes. Some jurisdictions require this. Remember outdoor water faucets and utilities to any remote areas, RV park in my case, but you might want to plan for an outdoor kitchen or something like that. Think about maybe running 3/4 inch lines for your tub and shower. I don't think many folks do this, however, I'm going to give it a try in the hope that I can get big water in the master bath shower. Remember the sink for your kitchen island if you want one. Think about stuff like home theater and speaker wiring. I'll be installing a surface-mounted electrical outlet on the living room floor where the sofa will be. Actually, electrical wiring is a whole other story. However, in my case, this and the power to the kitchen island will be all I will require. Home theater, I'll be installing conduit for speaker wires for the rear surround speakers, which will include an Ethernet cable for the sofa area. My subwoofer cable can run along the wall, but your needs may differ. These blue lines show where the conduits will be installed for the kitchen island and for the floor outlet in the living room. This Leviton floor receptacle has two sides, one for electric and one for communication stuff, which requires separate conduit. I'll be running wires for the rear surround speakers and an Ethernet cable on that side. As always, thanks for watching Mitch Madness, and be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of more cool stuff.